The suitcase lay open on our bed like a wound, half filled with carefully folded dress shirts and slacks. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom in our Phoenix townhouse, watching my husband David pack for what he'd told me was a critical business trip to San Diego. It was a Thursday afternoon in late March, and the Arizona sun blazed through our windows with an intensity that matched the growing unease in my chest. "How long did you say you'd be gone?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. David didn't look up from his packing. "Just the weekend, Friday through Sunday. The client meetings are Saturday, but Rick wants us there Friday night to prepare." He folded another shirt with precision, something he'd never done before. Usually, he just threw clothes in a bag and hoped for the best. "Rick's going too?" I asked, thinking of his boss, a 50-something man with a wife and 3 kids. "Yeah, and a few others from the team. Jennifer, Marcus, that new guy Tom." He zipped up his toiletry bag. "Pretty standard client pitch trip. Jennifer Kraus. I knew that name. She'd joined David's marketing firm about 8 months ago as a senior account executive. He'd mentioned her occasionally. Jennifer landed the Reynolds account. Jennifer has a different take on the campaign. Always professional, always casual. Until recently. I'd noticed changes over the past 2 months. David staying late at the office more frequently, taking calls in the other room, his phone always face down on surfaces. The way he'd started going to the gym regularly after years of my encouragement falling on deaf ears. New cologne, better haircuts, classic signs if you believed the articles about infidelity. But I'd told myself I was being paranoid. We'd been married for 6 years. We'd bought this townhouse together 3 years ago. We were trying for a baby. David wouldn't risk all that. Would he? "I should get going," David said, checking his watch. A new watch I'd noticed last week, but he'd claimed to have owned for years. "Flight's at 6:15. I need to be at the airport by 4:30. It was 3:45 p.m. He lifted his suitcase off the bed and set it by the door, then grabbed his laptop bag. "I'll call you when I land." "Okay." I walked over and kissed him, searching his face for signs of deception. He looked the same as always. Brown hair, blue eyes, the small scar on his chin from a childhood bike accident. My husband, the man I'd known for 8 years. "Love you," he said, squeezing my hand. "Love you too. Safe flight." I watched from the window as he loaded his car and drove away, our golden retriever Max whining softly beside me. Something felt wrong. I couldn't name it exactly, but the feeling sat heavy in my stomach like a stone. I went back to the bedroom to straighten up, and that's when I saw it. David's iPad on his nightstand, charging. He always took it on trips. Always. It was where he kept his presentations, his documents, everything for work. Unless this wasn't actually a work trip. My hands shook as I picked up the device. I knew his passcode, 1215, my birthday. We'd never hidden things from each other. I unlocked it and went straight to his messages. The thread with JK made my blood run cold. "JK, 3 days ago. Can't wait for this weekend. Finally, some real time together. David. I know, it's been too hard keeping this secret at the office. JK. The hotel looks amazing. I've never been to that resort in La Jolla before. David. You're going to love it. Ocean views, private balcony, that spa you wanted to try. JK, yesterday. Just booked my flight. United 1247, Friday at 6:15. You on the same one? David. Yes, but we should probably sit separately. Just in case. JK. I miss you already. 2 more days feels like forever. David. I miss you too. This is going to be perfect. And then, today, just an hour ago. JK. Packing now, I miss you. Can't believe we get a whole weekend together. I sat down heavily on the bed, the iPad still in my hands, staring at the messages that confirmed what I'd feared, but hadn't wanted to believe. David wasn't going to San Diego for client meetings. There was no Rick, no Marcus, no team presentation. He was going to La Jolla with Jennifer Kraus for a romantic weekend getaway at a resort with ocean views and a spa. While I sat at home with our dog, believing his lies. The pain hit me first, sharp and immediate, like a knife between my ribs. Then came the anger, hot and consuming, burning away the shock. And finally, beneath it all, a cold, calculated fury that surprised me with its clarity. He thought he could lie to me. He thought he could sneak away for a romantic weekend with his mistress while I played the oblivious wife at home. He thought I was stupid. I looked at the clock. 4:02 p.m. David's flight was at 6:15. United 12:47 to San Diego. I grabbed my phone and pulled up United's website. My fingers flew over the screen, searching for the flight. There it was. United 12:47, Phoenix to San Diego, departing 6:15 p.m., arriving 7:32 p.m. Pacific Time. Plenty of seats available. I didn't pause to consider the wisdom of what I was about to do. I just clicked through the booking process, my credit card information autofilling, my heart pounding with each confirmation screen. Seat 12C. Booked. Confirmation email sent. I looked at the seating chart again, zooming in. Most of the plane was still available, but 2 seats in first class were marked as occupied, 7A and 7D. David always flew first class on work trips. The company paid for it. I scrolled through the upgrade options, my hand hovering over the screen. Then I saw it. Seat 7B, right between 7A and 7D, available for an extra $200. I clicked it before I could talk myself out of it. Upgraded. Confirmed. I was going to be sitting between my husband and his mistress on their romantic getaway flight. The absurdity of it hit me, and I started laughing. A slightly manic sound that made Max tilt his head in confusion. What was I doing? What was I thinking? But I knew exactly what I was doing. I was taking control. I was refusing to be the fool, the victim, the woman who found out months later and wished she'd done something. I jumped up and threw open my closet. I had an hour and 15 minutes to get to the airport. I needed to pack, not much, just essentials. I grabbed a small carry-on and started throwing things in. Jeans, a nice blouse, toiletries, my makeup bag, comfortable shoes, and then, because some part of me was still thinking about the confrontation, my best dress and heels. I called my neighbor Mrs. Patterson, a retired teacher who loved Max. "Hi, sweetie," she answered warmly. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm so sorry for the last-minute notice, but I need to catch a flight. Can you watch Max for the weekend? I'll pay you double." "Of course, dear. Is everything all right? You sound stressed." "I'm fine. Just a family emergency." Not entirely a lie. My marriage was definitely in emergency status. "I'll drop him off in 10 minutes. I'll be waiting." I threw dog food, Max's bed, and his favorite toys into a bag, grabbed his leash, and rushed him next door. Mrs. Patterson took one look at my face and didn't ask questions, just pulled me into a quick hug. "Whatever it is, you'll get through it," she said quietly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, and ran back to my car. The drive to Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport was a blur. I parked in long-term parking, grabbed my bag, and ran to the terminal. The security line was mercifully short, and by 5:30, I was through and heading to gate B-17. That's when reality started to set in. What was I actually going to do? Walk up to them at the gate? Wait until we were on the plane? Confront them mid-flight in front of all the other passengers? I found a seat at a different gate across from B-17, partially hidden behind a support column, and watched. At 5:45, I saw him, David, walking toward the gate with his carry-on, wearing the dark jeans and blue button-down he'd had on when he left the house. He looked relaxed, happy even, checking his phone and smiling at whatever he saw there. 5 minutes later, she appeared. Jennifer Krause was tall and blonde, probably late 20s, wearing designer jeans and a leather jacket that probably cost more than my entire outfit. She was objectively beautiful, the kind of woman who turned heads without trying. I watched as she spotted David. Her whole face lit up, and she walked toward him with an eagerness that made me want to scream. He stood up, and for a heart-stopping moment, I thought he might kiss her right there in the gate area. But he caught himself, just touching her arm briefly and gesturing to seats away from the main crowd. They sat close together, their heads bent in conversation, occasionally laughing. She touched his knee. He tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. They looked like a couple, a real couple, not a married man sneaking around with his coworker. The pain was physical now, a tightness in my chest that made it hard to breathe. This was real. This was happening. My husband was having an affair, and I was watching it unfold in real time. At 5:55, boarding was called for first class. David and Jennifer stood, grabbed their bags, and got in line. I waited, letting a few more people board, then joined the line myself. My hands shook as I handed my boarding pass to the gate agent. "Seat 7B, she said cheerfully. "Enjoy your flight." I walked down the jetway, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was it. There was no turning back now. The first-class cabin was small and intimate, just 4 rows of 2 seats on each side of the aisle. I could see David settling into 7A, the window seat. Jennifer was across the aisle in 7D, also by the window. They were both looking at their phones, probably texting each other, unaware that I was about to destroy their perfect little plan. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked down the aisle. David looked up first, probably hearing someone approach. I watched the confusion cross his face, then the recognition, then the absolute terror. "Hi, honey," I said, my voice remarkably steady. "Fancy meeting you here?" His face drained of all color. "Emma? What? How?" Jennifer looked up, saw me, saw David's face, and I watched comprehension dawn in her eyes. "Oh, God," she whispered. "I'm in 7B, I said pleasantly, looking at my boarding pass as if this was all perfectly normal. "Right between you two. How convenient." I lifted my bag into the overhead compartment, taking my time, letting them both sit in their panic. Then I sat down in 7B, between my husband and his mistress, fastened my seatbelt, and smiled. "So," I said, looking at David, "tell me about these client meetings in San Diego. I'd love to hear all about them." David opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Across the aisle, Jennifer had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. Other passengers filed past us, oblivious to the drama unfolding in row 7. "This is going to be a very interesting flight," I said, pulling out the in-flight magazine and flipping through it as if I didn't have a care in the world. Inside, I was shaking. Inside, my heart was breaking. But outside, I was composed, controlled, powerful. David had made his choice. Now he'd have to face the consequences. And those consequences started right here, at 30,000 feet, with nowhere to run and 2.5 hours until landing. The flight attendant came by offering pre-departure beverages. "Champagne?" she asked cheerfully. "Yes, please," I said. "I'm celebrating." "Oh, how wonderful. What's the occasion?" I looked directly at David. "My marriage ending, cheers." The champagne arrived in a plastic flute, bubbles rising steadily to the surface. I took a long sip while David sat frozen beside me, his face a shade of gray I'd never seen before. Across the aisle, Jennifer had pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling as she typed something frantically. "I wouldn't text him if I were you," I said conversationally, not looking at her. "I'm sitting right here. Seems a bit redundant." She stopped typing, her face flushing deep red. The flight attendant moved down the aisle, and I turned to David. "So, client meetings. Tell me all about them." "Emma, I can explain," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sure you can. You've always been good with words. It's what makes you successful in marketing, right? Crafting the perfect narrative." I took another sip of champagne. "So, craft one for me now. I'm genuinely curious what explanation you've come up with in the last 5 minutes." He glanced around nervously. The businessman in 6A had his headphones in, already engrossed in his laptop. The elderly woman in 6D was reading a paperback. No one was paying attention to us yet. "Can we not do this here?" David pleaded. "Please, let's get through the flight, and we can talk when we land." "Talk when we land?" "When you and Jennifer check into your romantic Ocean View resort room in La Jolla." I pulled out my phone and opened the messages I'd screenshotted from his iPad. "The one with the private balcony and the spa she's been dying to try?" His eyes widened. "You went through my iPad. You left it at home. Funny, since you always take it on work trips. Unless, of course, this isn't actually a work trip." I scrolled through the screenshots. "Want me to read some of these messages aloud? I'm sure the whole cabin would find them fascinating." "Please don't," he whispered urgently. Jennifer leaned forward, looking across the aisle. "Mrs. Mitchell, I am so sorry. This is all my fault. I never should have. Don't, I said sharply, turning to look at her for the first time. Up close, she was even prettier. Green eyes, perfect skin, the kind of effortless beauty that probably made life easier. Don't apologize to make yourself feel better. And don't pretend this is all your fault. It takes two people to have an affair. She flinched and sat back. The captain's voice came over the intercom, announcing our departure, instructing flight attendants to prepare the cabin. The plane began to push back from the gate. How long? I asked David, keeping my voice low as the safety demonstration began. How long has this been going on? He stared at his hands. 2 months. 2 months. So since January. I thought back over the past 2 months. His birthday in early February. I'd planned a special dinner, but he'd seemed distracted all night. Valentine's Day. He'd brought me flowers but had worked late. Did you sleep with her? The pause was answer enough. Jesus Christ, David. I'm sorry, he said miserably. I never meant for this to happen. It just developed. We were working late on the Morrison campaign, spending a lot of time together, and we connected. Stop. I held up my hand. Do not give me the "it just happened" speech. Nothing just happens. You made choices. Multiple choices. Every time you texted her, every time you lied to me, every time you touched her, those were choices. The plane was taxiing now, picking up speed. I'd never been afraid of flying before. But suddenly the idea of being trapped in this metal tube with my cheating husband and his mistress for the next 2.5 hours felt suffocating. What were you planning? I asked. This weekend, I mean. Were you going to tell me eventually? Or just keep sneaking around indefinitely? David finally looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that looked like genuine anguish. I don't know. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. You seemed pretty sure about wanting a romantic weekend getaway with ocean views. Emma, do you love her? The question came out before I could stop it, and I immediately regretted asking. Because what if he said yes? What if this wasn't just an affair, but actual love? He didn't answer right away, which was somehow worse than any response he could have given. The plane lifted off the runway, Phoenix falling away beneath us. The desert landscape stretched out in all directions, the mountains purple in the distance. I'd lived here for 4 years, ever since David got the job at the marketing firm. I'd left my position at a design agency in Portland to move here with him, to support his career opportunity. I care about her, he finally said quietly. But I love you. I married you. I chose you. You chose her too. You just didn't want to give up the comfort of me while you explored things with her. I finished my champagne and set the empty flute down. That's the thing about affairs, isn't it? The cheater gets everything, the stability of marriage and the excitement of something new. The wife just gets lies. Across the aisle, Jennifer was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Part of me felt bad for her. She was young, probably genuinely believed whatever David had told her about our marriage. But a bigger part of me didn't care. She'd known he was married. She'd made her choice too. The seatbelt sign dinged off, and the flight attendant came by with menus. "Can I get you anything else to drink?" she asked cheerfully. "Vodka tonic," I said. "Make it a double." David ordered water. Jennifer waved her off. "So what happens now?" David asked after the flight attendant left. "You're clearly not here to give me your blessing." "No, I'm here because I refuse to be the idiot wife sitting at home while you two play house in La Jolla. I'm here because you deserve to know, that I'm not blind or stupid." I accepted my drink from the returning flight attendant and took a long sip. As for what happens now, I honestly haven't figured that part out yet. But I can tell you what's not happening. You two are not checking into that resort together. Not this weekend. Not ever. You can't stop us from... Can't I? I have the reservation confirmation in your email, David. The one you so helpfully synced to your iPad. It's under your name and credit card. Our joint credit card, by the way. I can cancel it with one phone call. His jaw tightened. You wouldn't. Try me. I pulled out my phone. Or better yet, you cancel it. Right now. Tell the resort you won't be needing the Ocean View suite after all. We stared at each other, a silent battle of wills at 30,000 feet. Finally, he looked away. I'll cancel it, he muttered. Good. Speakerphone, please. I want to hear it. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed the resort. I listened as he explained there had been a change in plans, that he needed to cancel the reservation. The cheerful receptionist confirmed the cancellation and wished him a nice day. There, he said, setting his phone down. Happy? Not even remotely, but it's a start. I turned to Jennifer. And you? Do you have a hotel reservation? She nodded, not meeting my eyes. Where? The Marriott Gaslamp Quarter, she whispered. Downtown San Diego, not La Jolla. I filed that information away. Well, at least you'll have somewhere to stay while you think about the destruction you've helped cause. I really am sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I never wanted to hurt you. David said, let me guess. David said we were having problems? That the marriage was already over? That we barely spoke anymore? I looked at my husband. Is that what you told her? His silence was confirmation. For the record, Jennifer, our marriage was fine until you came along. We were trying for a baby. We had plans for our future. The only problem we had was that my husband is apparently a liar and a cheat, but I didn't know that until today. The businessman in 6A had removed his headphones and was now blatantly eavesdropping. I didn't care. Let the whole plane know what David Mitchell had done. 6 years, I continued, my voice rising slightly. We've been married for 6 years, together for 8. I moved to Phoenix for you, David. I left my job, my friends, my life in Portland because you got this amazing opportunity. And this is how you repay me? I know, he said, his own voice thick with emotion. I know. And I'm so sorry. I was selfish and stupid, and I hate myself for hurting you. You should hate yourself. You should feel terrible. But you know what? I bet a week ago you didn't feel terrible at all. You felt excited about this trip. You felt happy about sneaking around. The guilt only kicked in when you got caught. He didn't deny it. The flight attendant came by with lunch service, some kind of pasta dish that I didn't have the stomach to eat. I ordered another vodka tonic instead. Emma, please don't, David said, eyeing my drink. You're going to regret this tomorrow. The only thing I regret is wasting 6 years on you. But I set the drink aside. He was right. Getting drunk wouldn't help anything. We flew in silence for a while, the hum of the engines the only sound. I stared out David's window, watching the landscape change from desert to mountains to coastal plains as we approached California. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Melissa in Portland. Melissa. Hey, how's your Friday going? I almost laughed. How was my Friday going? Let's see. Discovered my husband was having an affair, booked a last-minute flight to confront him and his mistress mid-trip, and was currently sitting between them at 30,000 feet. Pretty standard Friday, really. Me. It's been eventful. I'll call you later. Might need a place to crash for a while. Melissa. Are you okay? What happened? Me. David happened. I'll explain everything later. Melissa. Oh, honey, whatever you need, I'm here. I put my phone away, blinking back sudden tears. I wouldn't cry. Not here, not in front of them. I'd save my tears for later, when I was alone and could fall apart in private. What are you going to do when we land? David asked quietly. I haven't decided yet. Maybe I'll go explore San Diego. I've never been. Maybe I'll catch a flight back to Phoenix tonight. Maybe I'll book my own hotel room and enjoy a solo vacation while I figure out my next move. I turned to look at him. The one thing I know for sure is that I'm not going home to sit there wondering where you are and what you're doing. Those days are over. Are you going to... He paused. Are you going to divorce me? The question hung in the air between us. Was I? 24 hours ago, the thought would have been unthinkable. Now it felt inevitable. I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me again after I've had time to process the fact that my husband has been screwing his coworker for 2 months. Jennifer made a small sound of distress. I'd almost forgotten she was there. This is so messed up, she said, wiping her eyes. I never wanted this. Any of this. Then you shouldn't have slept with a married man, I said bluntly. I know, you're right. I fell for him. He was different from other guys I'd dated. Mature, successful, attentive. He made me feel special. Congratulations. You felt special for 2 months. I felt special for 8 years. Until today. The pilot announced our descent into San Diego. I looked out the window as the Pacific Ocean came into view, the late afternoon sun glinting off the water. In another life, another universe where my husband wasn't a cheating bastard, this would have been beautiful. When we land, I don't want to see either of you, I said as the plane began its descent. David, I'll text you later about logistics. When you're coming home, how we're handling this. Until then, stay away from me. Emma? I mean it. I need space. I need time. I need to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with the rest of my life. The wheels touched down with a slight bump, and we taxied to the gate. As soon as the seatbelt sign turned off, I grabbed my bag from the overhead compartment and pushed past David into the aisle. Emma, wait! He called after me. But I was already moving, walking quickly up the jetway, away from my husband and his mistress, away from the wreckage of my marriage, toward an uncertain future that suddenly felt less terrifying than the past I was leaving behind. I made it to the terminal, found a quiet corner by a window, and finally let myself cry. Big, gasping sobs that shook my whole body. A kind older woman stopped and asked if I was okay, offering tissues from her purse. Husband trouble, I managed to say. She patted my shoulder sympathetically. They're rarely worth the tears, honey. But cry them anyway. You'll feel better after. I wasn't sure about that, but I cried anyway. Watching planes take off and land through the window, carrying people to and from their lives while mine fell apart in Terminal 1 of San Diego International Airport. After 20 minutes of crying in the airport, I pulled myself together enough to think rationally. I couldn't just stand here forever. I needed a plan. I found a quiet spot near a Hudson News and opened my phone. First, I texted Mrs. Patterson to make sure Max was okay. Then, I pulled up hotel options in San Diego. The airport Hilton had rooms available. It wasn't glamorous, but it would do for tonight while I figured out my next move. I booked the room, grabbed an Uber, and checked in by 8 p.m. The room was generic but clean. Beige walls, standard furniture, a view of the parking lot. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall, the events of the day finally catching up to me. My phone buzzed constantly. David calling and texting from different numbers since I'd blocked the first one. Unknown. Emma, please. We need to talk. Unknown. I'm so sorry. I know I messed up. Please just let me explain. Unknown. I'm at the Marriott downtown. Jennifer and I aren't together. I got my own room. Please believe me. I didn't respond to any of them. What was there to say? I'd seen the messages. I'd watched them at the gate, touching each other, looking at each other like lovers. Words were cheap. His actions had told me everything I needed to know. Instead, I called Melissa. Emma? Oh my God, what happened? Are you okay? And just like that, I was crying again. Through the tears, I told her everything, finding the iPad, reading the messages, booking the flight, confronting them in row 7. You did what? Melissa's voice was a mix of shock and admiration. You sat between them on the plane? That is the most badass thing I've ever heard. It didn't feel badass. It felt terrifying. I bet. But Emma, you confronted him. You didn't just sit at home crying. You took control. And now I'm in San Diego alone in a hotel room and I have no idea what to do next. Do you want to try to work it out with him? The question stopped me cold. Did I? Could I? Even if I wanted to. Could I ever trust him again? Could I look at him without seeing Jennifer's hand on his knee? Without imagining them together? I don't think so, I said slowly. I don't think I can get past this. Then you know what you need to do. Divorce. The word felt foreign on my tongue. If that's what you want, then yes. And Em, you can stay with me and Jake for as long as you need. We have the guest room. You can figure things out, maybe even move back to Portland. The thought was appealing. Portland, where I'd been happy before David, where my friends were, where I'd had a career I loved. Let me think about it, I said. Right now I just need to sleep. I'm exhausted. Call me tomorrow, okay? And Emma, you deserve so much better than this. After we hung up, I ordered room service, a burger and fries that I barely touched, and took a long, hot shower. When I finally got into bed, it was almost 11 p.m., and I was more exhausted than I'd ever been in my life. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw David's face when he realized I was on the plane. I saw Jennifer's tears. I saw the messages on his iPad. At midnight, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole. David stood in the hallway, looking disheveled and desperate. "Emma, please," he said, apparently knowing I was looking. "I know you're in there. Please just give me 5 minutes." "Go away, David. I can't. Not until we talk. Please, 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I opened the door but left the chain lock engaged. "You have 3 minutes. Talk." He looked terrible. His hair messy, his eyes red, his shirt wrinkled. I ended it. With Jennifer. I told her it was over, that I made a mistake, that I want to fix things with you. Congratulations. You ended an affair that should never have started. You want a medal? No, I want a chance. A chance to make this right, to prove that I can be the husband you deserve. You had that chance. For 6 years, you had that chance. You threw it away for 2 months of excitement with someone younger and prettier. "She's not prettier than you," he said desperately. And it wasn't about that. It was about, I don't know, feeling appreciated, feeling desired, feeling like I mattered. Are you seriously suggesting I didn't make you feel appreciated? I moved across the country for you, David. I supported your career. I ran our household, took care of everything so you could focus on work. And that wasn't enough? It was. You were. I got caught up in the attention. Jennifer made me feel young and exciting. And I was stupid enough to chase that feeling instead of appreciating what I had. So this is a midlife crisis? Is that what you're telling me? You're 34, David. That's a little early. I'm not making excuses. I'm trying to explain. There is no explanation that makes this okay. There's no justification for what you did. I started to close the door. Your 3 minutes are up. Wait, please. Emma, I love you. I know I have no right to ask, but please give me a chance to fix this. I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. What I want is to go back in time and marry someone who wouldn't cheat on me. But since that's not possible, what I need is space. Time to think. Time to figure out if there's anything left of this marriage worth saving. Is there? His voice was barely a whisper. Do you think there's a chance? I looked at him, really looked at him, and tried to find the man I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. The funny, ambitious, kind man who'd proposed on a beach in Oregon and promised to love me forever. But all I saw was a stranger who'd lied to me for 2 months, who'd planned a romantic getaway with another woman, who'd only ended things when he got caught. I don't know, I said honestly. A week ago, I would have said our marriage was solid. Now, I don't know anything anymore. But you'll think about it? You won't just give up on us? I'll think about it. But David, I need you to understand something. Even if, and that's a massive if, even if I decide to try to work through this, things will never be the same. That trust you destroyed, that might never come back. Every time you're late from work, every time you're on your phone, every time you mention a female coworker, I'll wonder. That's what you've done to us. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I know, and I hate myself for it. Good. You should. I started to close the door again. Go back to your hotel, David. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk. Until then, leave me alone. When are you flying back? I don't know. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe never. Maybe I'll stay in California and start over here. I honestly have no idea. Emma. Good night, David. I closed the door, re-engaged all the locks, and leaned against it, my heart pounding. I'd done it. I'd stood my ground. I hadn't caved to his tears or his promises. It should have felt empowering. Instead, it just felt exhausting. I climbed back into bed and stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. What did I want? Did I want to try to salvage the marriage? Did I want a divorce? Did I want to move back to Portland, or stay in Phoenix, or relocate somewhere entirely new? The questions swirled in my head until I finally fell into a fitful sleep around 3 a.m. I woke up at 8 a.m. to my phone ringing. An unknown Arizona number. Hello? Emma Mitchell? This is Detective Sarah Rodriguez with the Phoenix Police Department. My heart stopped. Is everything okay? Is it my parents? Your parents are fine. I'm actually calling about a report we received from a Jennifer Kraus. She claims you've been harassing and threatening her. The shock gave way to fury. She what? Ms. Kraus filed a report this morning claiming you confronted her on a flight yesterday, made threats, and have been causing her emotional distress. I'm calling to get your side of the story. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Jennifer Kraus has been having an affair with my husband for 2 months. Yesterday, I discovered they were taking a trip together this weekend. I booked a seat on the same flight to confront them both. I did not threaten her. I told her she was helping destroy my marriage, which is a fact, not a threat. Did you make any statements that could be construed as threatening? I told her she should feel bad about sleeping with a married man. I told her the affair was over. I did not threaten her physically or otherwise. Detective Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Ms. Kraus mentioned you were drinking on the flight and became aggressive. I had 2 drinks, and I was not aggressive. I was angry, yes. Hurt, absolutely. But I did not threaten her or touch her or do anything illegal. Okay. I'm going to make a note of your statement. For now, I'd advise you to avoid contact with Ms. Kraus. If she continues to feel threatened, this could escalate. She's the one who should avoid contact with my husband, I said. But fine. I have no interest in seeing or speaking to her ever again. After I hung up, I sat on the bed, shaking with rage. Jennifer had filed a police report. She was having an affair with my husband, and somehow I was the bad guy. I called David immediately. Emma, did you know Jennifer filed a police report against me? Silence. Then, what? Phoenix PD just called. She's claiming I harassed and threatened her on the flight. That's insane. You didn't threaten her. I know that, and you know that. But apparently she's playing the victim here. You need to talk to her. You need to tell her to drop this immediately. Or I swear to God, David, I will make your life a living hell. Okay. I'll call her. I'll handle it. You better. Because if I end up with some kind of criminal record because your mistress is vindictive, the divorce is going to be very, very ugly. I hung up before he could respond. The unfairness of it all crashed over me. I was the wronged party here. I was the one whose husband had cheated. And somehow, I was being painted as the aggressor? No, absolutely not. I refused to be the villain in this story. I got dressed, checked out of the hotel, and headed to the airport. I was going home. Not to Phoenix. That had never really been home anyway. I was going to Portland. I booked a flight leaving at 2 p.m., texted Melissa to let her know I was coming, and sat in the airport food court nursing a coffee while I made a list of everything I needed to do. 1. Find a divorce attorney. 2. Separate finances. 3. Figure out living situation. 4. Update job contacts in Portland. 5. Arrange to move my stuff. It was a daunting list, but writing it out made it feel manageable. I wasn't powerless. I had options. I had friends. I had a career I'd put on hold that I could revive. My phone buzzed. David. I talked to Jennifer. She's dropping the report. She's sorry. She panicked. Me. She should be sorry. And you should be too. I'm done with both of you. David. Where are you? Are you coming back to Phoenix? Me. Eventually. To get my things. But I'm not coming back to you. David. Please don't make any final decisions yet. Give it time. Give us a chance. Finney, you gave up our chance when you booked a romantic weekend with Jennifer. I'm done, David. I'll have an attorney contact you about the divorce. David. Emma, please. I love you. Don't throw away 6 years because of one mistake. Me. You threw them away, not me. Goodbye, David. I blocked his number, all of them, and turned off my phone. The flight to Portland was peaceful. No confrontations, no drama, just 2 hours of silence to think about everything that had happened in the last 36 hours. Melissa was waiting at baggage claim, and the moment I saw her, I started crying again. She pulled me into a tight hug and let me sob on her shoulder while travelers flowed around us. Come on, she said finally. Let's get you home. Home. Portland. The city I'd loved and left. Maybe it could be home again. Maybe I could start over. Maybe I could be okay. Melissa and Jake's house in the Alberta Arts District welcomed me like a warm hug. Colorful murals on nearby buildings, eclectic shops, the smell of coffee roasting from the cafe on the corner. It was so different from the sterile suburban development in Phoenix, so full of life and character. "Guest room is all yours," Melissa said, carrying my small bag upstairs. "Stay as long as you need, seriously. Weeks, months, whatever." The room was cozy. A double bed with a handmade quilt, plants on the windowsill, bookshelves lined with novels. It felt safe. I collapsed onto the bed. "Thank you. For everything. That's what best friends are for." She sat beside me. "So what's the plan?" "Honestly, I have no idea. Divorce David. Move back to Portland permanently. Try to rebuild my career. That's about as far as I've gotten. That's a solid start." Jake's cousin is a divorce attorney. Really good. Specializes in cases with infidelity. "Want me to get you her number?" "Yes, please." Over the next few days, I settled into a routine. Mornings, I'd walk to the coffee shop and work on updating my portfolio. Afternoons, I'd research divorce law in Arizona and make calls to attorneys. Evenings, I'd have dinner with Melissa and Jake, grateful for their company and support. David called constantly from new numbers. I let them all go to voicemail, listening to his increasingly desperate pleas. "Emma, please, just talk to me. I miss you. I miss us. I made a terrible mistake. Please don't give up on me." On day 4, I finally called him back. "Emma? Thank God. I was so worried. I'm fine. I'm in Portland with Melissa. I'm meeting with a divorce attorney tomorrow." Silence. Then, "You're really going through with it?" "Yes." "What did you think was going to happen, David? That I'd just forgive you and we'd go back to normal? I hoped we could at least try counseling. Work through this together. There is no together anymore. You destroyed that when you slept with Jennifer. It's over with her. Completely over. She quit her job. She's moving back to Colorado where her family is. Good for her. But that doesn't change anything between us. Emma, please. 6 years of marriage has to count for something." I thought about those 6 years. The good times, lazy Sunday mornings, road trips along the coast, dancing in our kitchen, planning for the future, but also the sacrifices I'd made. My career, my city, my independence. All for a marriage that David had thrown away. "It did count for something," I said quietly. "But you made it count for nothing when you chose her over me. I'm done, David. My attorney will be in touch about dividing assets and filing the paperwork." "I'm not going to make this easy," he said, his voice hardening. "If you want a divorce, fine. But I'm not just handing over everything. I don't want everything. I want what's fair. But if you want to fight dirty, I have screenshots of every message between you and Jennifer. I have proof of your adultery. Arizona is a no-fault state, but judges still consider behavior when dividing assets. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. You made this mess, David. Now you get to live with the consequences." I hung up and immediately called the attorney Melissa had recommended, Catherine Chen, a sharp woman in her 40s who'd been practicing family law for 20 years. "Ms. Mitchell," she said when I called, "Melissa told me about your situation. I'm sorry you're going through this." "Thank you. I need to know my options." We spent an hour on the phone discussing the particulars. Arizona was a community property state, which meant assets acquired during the marriage would be split equally unless there were extenuating circumstances. The townhouse, bought during the marriage, would likely be sold and profits divided. Our cars, our savings, everything would be calculated and split. The good news is, Arizona is also a no-fault divorce state, which means you don't have to prove adultery to get a divorce, Catherine explained. The bad news is that adultery doesn't necessarily affect the asset division unless you can prove he spent marital funds on the affair. He used our joint credit card for the hotel reservation in La Jolla. That helps. Gather any evidence of him using marital funds for the affair. Hotels, gifts, dinners, anything. That could strengthen your position. I spent the weekend going through bank statements and credit card bills, my stomach turning as I found evidence. Expensive dinners when he'd claimed to be working late, a jewelry purchase in February that I'd never received, a charge from a hotel in Scottsdale in January when he'd supposedly been at a local client meeting. I documented everything, built a timeline, created a spreadsheet. If David wanted to fight, I'd give him a fight. On Monday, Catherine filed the divorce petition. David would be served within days. I also started reaching out to my old contacts in Portland's design community. To my surprise, many remembered me and were interested in my current work. Emma Bennett. "I was just thinking about you," said Marcus Reed, creative director at a firm I'd admired for years. "Your work on the Cascade Coffee rebrand was brilliant. Are you back in Portland?" "I am. Recently separated, starting fresh." "I'm sorry to hear about the separation, but glad you're back. We're actually looking for a senior designer." "Would you be interested in interviewing?" I scheduled the interview for Thursday. Wednesday, I got a call from another firm. Friday, a third. By the end of my second week in Portland, I had 3 job offers and 1 freelance contract worth more than I'd made in 6 months in Phoenix. "Look at you," Melissa said, raising her wine glass in celebration. "Back for 2 weeks and already crushing it." "It feels good," I admitted. "Like I'm remembering who I was before I became Mrs. David Mitchell." "You were always amazing. You just forgot for a while." I accepted the position at Marcus's firm. Good salary, creative freedom, a team I clicked with immediately. I'd start in 2 weeks, which gave me time to fly back to Phoenix and pack up my life. The thought of returning to that townhouse made me nauseous, but it had to be done. I couldn't move forward while my entire life was still boxed up in Arizona. I flew back on a Tuesday, rented a car, and drove to the townhouse in the late afternoon. David's car wasn't in the driveway, thank God. I'd texted him I was coming to pack, and he'd agreed to stay away. Mrs. Patterson came over immediately, Max bounding beside her. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, pulling me into a hug. "I've been so worried about you." Max jumped all over me, tail wagging frantically. I buried my face in his fur, letting his uncomplicated love soothe me. "I'm okay," I told Mrs. Patterson. "Or I will be. Thank you for watching Max." "Of course. He's been a perfect angel." She paused. "David came by a few times. He looked terrible. I almost felt sorry for him." Almost. Then I remembered what he did, and the sympathy disappeared. She squeezed my hand. "You need any help packing?" "I think I'm okay. But thank you." She left, and I stood in the entryway of the townhouse, looking around at the life I was dismantling. The couch we'd picked out together, the photos on the walls, the kitchen where we'd cooked dinners and had coffee on lazy mornings. It had all seemed so permanent. Now it was just stuff to be divided and distributed. I started in the bedroom, packing my clothes methodically. I left David's things untouched. In the closet, I found a box of his stuff that I'd never noticed before. Old college yearbooks, photos from before we met, a jersey from his high school baseball team. At the bottom of the box was a small velvet pouch. Inside was a ring, a simple gold band with a small diamond. His grandmother's ring, the one his mother had given him when we got engaged, saying he could give it to our daughter someday. The daughter we'd never have now. I put the ring back and closed the box. That future was gone. Time to focus on the one I was building. I packed for 3 days, sorting through years of accumulated belongings. What to keep, what to donate, what to leave for David. By Thursday, I had everything I wanted loaded into a small moving truck I'd rented. I did one final walkthrough of the empty-feeling townhouse. My bedroom was stripped of personal items. My office cleared out. The only things left were the furniture and David's belongings. I was in the kitchen, doing a final check of the cabinets, when I heard a key in the front door. David walked in, stopping short when he saw me. "Emma, I didn't think you'd still be here. Just finishing up." I gestured to the boxes by the door. "That's everything." He looked around at the half-empty house, his face crumpling. "This is really happening. You're really leaving." "Yes." "Where are you going? Back to Portland?" "Yes. I have a job lined up. An apartment. A life. A life without me. A life without lies. Without wondering if my husband is cheating. Without feeling like I'm not enough." I picked up my purse. "I need to go. The movers are coming in an hour to load the truck." "Wait." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "My attorney sent this. The response to your divorce petition." I took it, my hands steady despite my racing heart. "What does it say?" "I'm not contesting the divorce. I'll sign whatever papers you need." I'll agree to a fair division of assets. I can't fight you anymore. You deserve better than that. The admission surprised me. I'd expected resistance, arguments, a drawn-out legal battle. Thank you, I said quietly. I'm selling the townhouse, he continued. Too many memories. I'm probably going to move too. Maybe back to Ohio where my parents are. Start over somewhere new. That's probably for the best. We stood there awkwardly. Two people who'd once promised forever, now strangers in a house that no longer felt like home to either of us. I really am sorry, David said. For all of it. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. Yes, I did. But thank you for saying that. Are you happy? In Portland? I thought about it. Was I happy? Not entirely. There was still grief, still anger, still moments when I missed the life I'd thought I had. But underneath all that was something new. Hope. I'm getting there, I said. Some days are better than others. But I'm moving forward, and that's what matters. Good. I'm glad. He moved toward the door. I'll let you finish up. Take care of yourself, Emma. You too, David. He left, and I stood alone in the kitchen where I'd discovered his betrayal just 3 weeks earlier. 3 weeks that had changed everything. I picked up the last box and walked out of the townhouse without looking back. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment in Portland's Pearl District, looking out at the city lights as the June sun set over the West Hills. Max was sprawled on his bed by the window, content in his new home. On my laptop screen was the final version of a branding campaign I'd been working on for 3 months, my most ambitious project since joining Marcus's firm. My phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. Melissa, wine night? Jake's at poker. We can trash talk your ex and celebrate your promotion. My promotion, Senior Creative Director, announced just this morning. A title I'd worked toward for years. Finally achieved. Me. Absolutely. My place or yours? Melissa. Yours. I want to see that view. 7 p.m.? Me. Perfect. I'll order Thai. I submitted the branding campaign to Marcus, then changed into comfortable clothes and tidied the apartment. The space was entirely mine, decorated with art I loved, furniture I'd chosen, colors that made me happy. No compromises, no consultations. Just me. The divorce had been finalized 2 months ago. David had been true to his word. He hadn't contested anything, had agreed to a fair division of assets. The townhouse had sold quickly, and with my half of the profit plus my savings, I'd been able to afford this apartment with a view and still have money left over. David had moved back to Ohio. We had no contact except for the occasional forwarding of mail. Jennifer had apparently moved to Colorado, as David had said. The affair that had destroyed my marriage had burned out almost as quickly as it had ignited. Melissa arrived at 7 p.m. with a bottle of expensive wine and a grin. Senior Creative Director? Emma, that's huge! I know. I still can't quite believe it. I poured us both glasses. 2 years ago, I was in Phoenix, barely working, defining myself by being David's wife. Now look at me. Now look at you indeed. Melissa raised her glass. To Emma Bennett, badass creative director and survivor of the world's worst husband. We clinked glasses and drank. The wine was excellent, smooth and rich. So, Melissa said, settling onto my couch, have you thought about dating yet? I'd been waiting for this question. A little. Maybe. I don't know. There's this guy at Jake's work. No setups, please. If I'm going to date, I want to do it on my own terms. Fair enough. But you should at least put yourself out there. Join an app. Go to some events. You're 32, Emma. You have your whole life ahead of you. She was right. I'd spent the last 6 months healing, rebuilding, rediscovering who I was outside of marriage. Maybe it was time to think about what came next. I'll think about it, I promised. We spent the evening drinking wine, eating pad thai, and catching up on each other's lives. Melissa told me about her work at the architecture firm, about Jake's latest photography project, about their plans to finally take that trip to Japan they'd been postponing for years. It felt good to hear about other people's lives, their plans, their happiness. For months I'd been so consumed by my own drama that I'd forgotten to look outward. What about you? Melissa asked. Any big plans? Travel? Projects? Adventures? Actually, yes. Marcus wants to send me to a design conference in Barcelona in September. All expenses paid, chance to network with European firms, present our work. Emma, that's amazing. I know. A year ago, I would have said no. Would have worried about leaving Max, about being away from home, about a dozen things that didn't really matter. Now, I'm going. I'm going to Barcelona, and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. That's my girl. After Melissa left around 10 p.m., I sat by the window with Max, looking out at Portland's skyline. The city was alive with lights, with possibility, with promise. My phone buzzed. An email from the dating app I'd downloaded last week but hadn't yet used. Someone had liked my profile. I opened it curious. James, 34, photographer and graphic designer, loved hiking and trying new restaurants. His profile picture showed a man with kind eyes and an easy smile, standing on what looked like a mountain trail. Before I could overthink it, I liked him back. Within minutes, he messaged me. James. Hi, Emma. I love your portfolio. That coffee shop rebrand is incredible. Are you new to Portland or have I just been missing great design all this time? Me. Moved back about 6 months ago. Portland native originally. And thank you. That project was a labor of love. James. Well, welcome back. If you're interested, I know a great little coffee place that could use your expertise. Also makes excellent lattes. Hint, hint. I smiled. It had been a long time since I'd flirted, but it felt nice, natural. Me. I'm always interested in good coffee and good company. When? James. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. at Coworker on Hawthorne? Me. It's a date. I set down my phone, my heart beating a little faster. A date. My first date as a divorced woman. The thought was scary and exciting in equal measure, but I was ready. Not ready to jump into a relationship, maybe, but ready to be open to possibilities, ready to see what life had to offer beyond the wreckage of my marriage. Saturday morning, I met James at Coworker. He was taller than I'd expected, with laugh lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. We talked for 3 hours, about design and photography, about Portland and travel, about everything except our past relationships. I'm divorced, I finally said, figuring I should be upfront. Fairly recently, 6 months ago. I'm sorry, he said, and seemed to mean it. That must have been hard. It was, but I'm doing better now. Learning who I am outside of that relationship. That's healthy. I went through something similar a few years ago. Not a divorce, but a long-term relationship that ended badly. It took time, but I got through it. And now I'm happy. Got a job I love, great friends, a city I adore. I'm open to seeing what comes next, but I'm not in a rush. I figure the right things happen when they're supposed to. I liked his philosophy. No pressure, no rush, just openness to possibility. We went on a second date the next week, then a third. By mid-July, we were seeing each other regularly, taking hikes in the gorge, exploring Portland's food scene, attending gallery openings and concerts. James never pushed for more than I was ready to give. He understood that I was still healing, still figuring things out, and I appreciated that patience more than I could say. One evening in late August, we were walking along the waterfront after dinner, the Willamette River reflecting the city lights. Can I ask you something? James said. Sure. Your ex-husband. Do you miss him? I thought about it honestly. Did I miss David? Did I miss who he'd been, or who I'd thought he was? I miss the life I thought I had, I said finally. The security, the partnership, the future we'd planned. But David himself? No. I don't miss the man who lied to me, who chose someone else, who made me doubt my own worth. Fair answer. Why do you ask? Because I'm starting to have real feelings for you, Emma. And before I let myself fall any further, I need to know if you're still in love with your ex, if there's any chance you'd go back to him. I stopped walking and turned to face him. There's no chance. That chapter is closed. I'm not in love with David. I'm not even sure I was in love with the real David. I was in love with who I wanted him to be. And what about me? James asked quietly. Any chance you could have feelings for the real me? I smiled. I already do. I'm not ready to rush into anything serious. I'm still figuring out who I am. But I like you, James. A lot. And I want to see where this goes. He kissed me then, gentle and sweet, and it felt like another new beginning. September came, and I flew to Barcelona for the design conference. I spent 5 days immersed in creativity, networking with designers from around the world, presenting my work to enthusiastic audiences, exploring a beautiful city on my own terms. On my last night there, I sat at a cafe in the Gothic Quarter, drinking wine and watching people pass by. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through photos from the trip. The architecture, the food, the conference, selfies with new friends from Japan and Sweden and Brazil. A year ago, I'd been an unhappy wife in Phoenix, my world small and constrained. Now I was a creative director in Portland, traveling internationally, dating a kind man, surrounded by friends, building a life that was entirely my own. I thought about that November morning when I'd found David's iPad, when I'd read those messages and felt my world collapse. At the time, it had felt like the end of everything. Now I could see it had been the beginning of finding my strength, the beginning of reclaiming my independence, the beginning of building a life that made me happy instead of just comfortable. I raised my wine glass to the Barcelona sky, to new beginnings and hard-won wisdom, to the woman I'd become through the fire of betrayal and the work of healing. Here's to you, Emma Bennett, I whispered. You survived, you thrived, and you're just getting started. Back in Portland, James picked me up from the airport with flowers and Max in the back seat. How was Barcelona? He asked, kissing my cheek. Incredible. Life-changing. I have so much to tell you. I want to hear everything. But first, I have a surprise for you. What kind of surprise? The good kind. Come on. He drove us to a gallery in the Pearl District, where a small crowd had gathered for an opening reception. Inside, the walls were covered with photographs, beautiful, haunting images of Portland's hidden places. These are yours, I said, recognizing James's work. My first solo show, and I wanted you to be here for it. He took my hand. You've been talking about new beginnings. This feels like mine. I squeezed his hand, looking around at the manifestation of his talent and passion. I'm so proud of you. We spent the evening celebrating his success, surrounded by friends and strangers who appreciated his art. And as I stood there, glass of champagne in hand, I realized something profound. I was happy, genuinely, authentically happy. Not the comfortable contentment I'd mistaken for happiness in my marriage, but real joy that came from living authentically, from pursuing my passions, from surrounding myself with people who valued and respected me. David had broken my heart, but in doing so, he'd freed me to become someone better, stronger, more fully myself. Later that night, back at my apartment, James and I stood by the window looking out at the city. What are you thinking about? He asked. How different my life is from a year ago. How scared I was. How lost. And now? Now I'm found. Not because of you, I added quickly. You're wonderful, but I found myself on my own. You're just a beautiful addition to a life I've built. He smiled. That's the best compliment you could give me. We stood together in comfortable silence, and I felt grateful for this moment, for this city, for this life I'd created from the ruins of my marriage. My phone buzzed. An email from Catherine, my divorce attorney. Catherine, FYI, received notice that David remarried last weekend. Wanted you to hear it from me first, rather than through the grapevine. I stared at the email, waiting for the pain, the jealousy, the anger, but none of it came. Instead, I felt nothing. David's life was his own now, separate from mine. Who he married, where he lived, what he did, none of it affected me anymore. I showed the email to James. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I really am. I deleted the email and put my phone away. That's his life now. This is mine. And how do you feel about your life? I looked around my apartment. My art on the walls, my books on the shelves, my dog sleeping peacefully, a man I was falling for standing beside me, a promotion I'd earned, a trip I'd taken alone, a future full of possibility. I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, I said. It took a betrayal and a divorce and a cross-country move to get here, but I made it. James pulled me close. You did, and I'm really glad you did. We stood by the window as the city lights twinkled below. Two people who'd found each other at exactly the right time. Not to complete each other, but to complement the complete lives they'd each built on their own. I'd learned so much in the past year. That love without respect is worthless. That marriage doesn't define you. That you can survive betrayal and come out stronger. That starting over isn't a failure. It's a brave choice. Most importantly, I'd learned that I didn't need someone else to make me whole. I was already whole, all on my own. And that knowledge, earned through pain and powered by resilience, was worth more than any marriage certificate or promise of forever from someone who couldn't keep their word. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Melissa. Melissa, coffee tomorrow morning? Want to hear all about Barcelona and see how things are going with James? Me. Absolutely. My place, 9 a.m., I'll make breakfast. Melissa. Perfect. Love you, friend. Me. Love you too. I set down my phone and smiled at James. Breakfast plans tomorrow. Melissa wants all the details about Barcelona. And about us? Probably. She's been waiting for me to find happiness again. And have you found happiness? I thought about the question. Real happiness, not the illusion of it. Not happiness that depended on someone else's choices or faithfulness or love, but happiness that came from within, from knowing yourself, from building a life that reflected your values and dreams. Yes, I said. I really have. Outside, Portland settled into night, a city full of possibilities and second chances. Inside, I stood with my dog and a man who might become something more, in an apartment that was completely mine, living a life I'd chosen rather than one that had been chosen for me. David's betrayal had ended one story, but it had also started another, one where I was the hero of my own narrative, the architect of my own future, the author of my own happiness. And that story, I was learning, was just beginning.